with that in mind, Brett, you are not going to believe this. There actually is a Superman on film update. And it's
Wow.
not, listen, I know today is April 1st. I know it is April Fool's Day, but I'm not fooling you, kiddo.
Not a
There
trick.
is actually, yeah, it's not a trick, I swear. I mean, some of this stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you, some of it falls into the outlandish rumor category. Some of the other stuff fall into things I find rather plausible and actually kind of interesting and I want to unpack them with you a little bit. But I feel like before I can fully get into my Superman on film update, I think we should talk about Zack Snyder's big night at the Oscars last Sunday, because he won not one but two different fan vote categories. There was the Oscars cheer moment, which went to Oscar cheers moment, which went to The Flash. That awesome moment in Zack Snyder's Justice League where he's able to enter the Speed Force and fix
This
everything.
reverses time, and yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then there was the Oscars fan favorite, which was Army of the Dead. And listen, regardless, well, actually, let me ask you, what do you think of those two honors being bestowed upon Mr. Snyder last Sunday? When you heard about those, what was your gut response?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at least like the one thing maybe the Oscars did that was like kind of in touch, even though there were like some really big snubs this year, were like big films. But I think it was cool that they had like a big like cheer moment. That's a pretty cool thing, and that they even had these like fan votes. So really, really cool that they included those. I hope they maybe include more things like that. But yeah, listen, a lot of these Snyderverse fans, or even listen, they're not all Snyder fans, they could just be DC fans that really enjoyed the movie. Their ability to really make a fan impact and get their voice heard is impressive. It is. And hopefully they did that in a nice and constructive way. But I think
in this case, I think
cool that they won that.
tweeting the hashtag. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, the whole
think
thing
really
speaks
cool
to his legion of fans. Yeah. I think it says a lot about what his fan base is able to do, especially when you consider that these movies were not these big mainstream hits. You know what I mean? Like I think in actuality, if we're being 100% honest, do we really think that a film that only ever streamed and came out 1 year ago got the biggest cheer of any movie in history? You know what I mean? It really deserves the biggest, because it wasn't even just, for 2021. It was like in general. There were moments in there that weren't just from last year. And it's like the fact that one won, it really just speaks to their ability to organize and do all that voting. And the same thing, Army of the Dead, I think it did pretty good on Netflix, but it wasn't some big, huge crossover smash. So are we really supposed to believe that is the big fan favorite of the year? Probably not. But again, it really does speak to Zack Snyder's fan base. And if those of you who participated, I mean, you kicked some ass and you got some things done for him. And I was happy for him. He posted something on Vero, just kind of like awesome. He couldn't believe that had happened. And listen, his fan base is hardcore and they can be counted on. And it's funny, I saw a couple of them afterward like start tweeting like, what else can we do next? Can we uncancel some other shows? Can we combine our powers to maybe get Hannibal back or get something else back? Because apparently we get stuff done. So listen, congratulations to Zack Snyder's fans. You got him a real special night at the Oscars. I feel like that was a real special reward for a guy who's had a few tough years there in the business.
Yeah,
lost his daughter, and he's had a bit of a bumpy run these last 5 years, and I'm sure you guys gave him a big reason to smile last Sunday. And I'm about to give some of you a big reason to smile, because as it turns out, there are some very, very credible rumors that Zack Snyder's Justice League is now canon and will now soon be revealed to be canon within DC's on-film universe. And the rumor is, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because that's kind of a plot spoiler, so I'm not going to reveal how it supposedly happens or any other the machinations of that. But apparently in The Flash, there's going to be a very overt reference to the fact that the stuff happening in that continuity is still actively happening in one of the multiverses here in the DC universe. So before, while the people listening to that compose themselves, I'm going to ask you, Brett, to respond. Like, did you ever imagine that this Snyder cut would actually end up becoming something that gets absorbed into the main continuity there?
No, I mean, for a while, it really seemed like, listen, we gave you the Snyder cut. Like, you have that, you got that piece of that vision, and, that was like the goodbye. Now we're moving on. And we're gonna, the things that are still around, like the Flash, like Aquaman, like Wonder Woman, are gonna, still exist. But the actual whole Justice League, portion of that is kind of going to bye bye and maybe going to be rebuilt. And now that it's showing this, listen, the way that the everything we know so far about this Flash movie, being some kind of Crisis Infinite Earths type deal, this multiverse type deal, that's the movie that has the power to do that. And it's cool that it seems possibly now that that's going to be incorporated in there too, not just bringing Michael Keaton back as Batman and so on and so forth. So I am A-okay with that. I think that makes a lot of people happy. I don't think it pulls away from their current plans. I really don't think it hurts anything. And, listen, they obviously see that, the fan base, I don't want to keep saying like just Snyder fans, because there are DC fans who very much, and I'm a DC fan who enjoyed, we talked about this, last week or 2 weeks ago. I enjoyed Justice League and I enjoyed the Snyder cut of Justice League.
To me, it was the best of all his works. Yeah,
it was like the best thing as far as everything he's done, up to that. So with that said, I think that it's a really cool idea. They see that there's definitely money to make there, and there is a rabid fan base for this stuff. So I think it's a smart thing to do, especially as a movie studio. Warner Brothers has been obviously messed a lot with Zack Snyder's stuff, and they've had a lot of shuffling around over the years. It's a great way to pay a little homage and fan service. So hey, it does not hurt anybody. It just makes people more happy, and I hope that's enough for some people, and we see, what that, how that comes to bear fruit in the future, and we don't get impatient and start like berating people and start trying to push harder for more things. Like, let's just go for the ride. Let's be calm, everybody. Let's just go for a nice, calm boat ride down the river,
Yeah. And listen, what I like about it is it makes them not hypocrites, because that was one of the things, talking about the multiverse, in the last year and a half, there's been lots of lip service about the multiverse that's coming for DC. And if they were just going to completely retcon all these other continuities and wipe them off the slate and act like they don't exist, then it's not really a multiverse, right? Then you're not allowing for those other things to still exist concurrently with what you're doing. You're basically saying, well, forget about all those, and this is all that matters now. So people would point out, like, some multiverse, if you're just going to completely wipe out big, huge portions of what's happened already. So the fact that they're going to acknowledge it means that this will be a true multiverse. But let's unpack that a little bit too, though, because, just because they're going to accept it as canon, the likelihood that we'll actually get that JL 2 and 3, I still have a hard time seeing how they make that work if they were to ever do it. And again, I don't think they would ever do it for the big screen. I think their only real route to do it would be on HBO Max as like a proper follow-up to Zack Snyder's Justice League, because that's essentially like an HBO Max exclusive. It's one of their
or maybe series. A mini series,
Yeah. So I feel like that is the natural place to do it. But again, it's the same weird territory that we've always discussed, where, you have Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, and Gal Gadot all moved on doing their own other movies. So now to have them come just to do their own solos and then come here and be part of the rest of Snyder's arc, I have a hard time seeing how they would do that. So I feel like while the Snyder cut is going to be absorbed into the canon, I feel like any Snyderverse stuff is going to be perhaps a little more off the beaten path. It'll be other stuff that's set in that timeline, in that continuity, that has that kind of feel perhaps, but is it necessarily the completion of Zack's plan? So that's the thing I wonder, like, will fans be cool with that? Like if he's involved and he's creatively overseeing it, but it's not exactly JL 2 and 3, like will that be enough? So I'm curious about how that's going to play out, if it's even going to play out. Because of course there's people even saying too, like the thing that we're going to see in the Flash could almost be construed as like just throwing them a bone. Like it's just a way to say like, listen, it happened. Okay. It's still there without any actual intentions of doing anything with it. But that's, I almost don't see how you can't, because to me, that Oscar moment shined a lot of spotlight on this. There were people around the world who suddenly saw that Zack Snyder's Justice League had been this big moment, right? And the numbers for the streaming on that internationally continue to be pretty doggone high. It did well for HBO Max, and it's done well in a lot of international markets. So if you're Discovery or Warner Media, the new corporate owners, and there was just this big moment at the Oscars, you're trying to find a way to like, how do I service that audience? There's clearly a very passionate audience for this stuff. So I feel like they're going to find a way to try and service them in some way, but I don't think it's going to be the thing that they're all dying for. So I think that's just going to be the interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on.
I agree.
And now specifically about our boy Superman and some of the strange rumors that are popping out now that the Flash is having test screenings. So one of the things that's making the rounds is this idea that Zod kills baby Kal-El before he ever comes to Earth, and therefore Supergirl is the only Kryptonian on Earth for a portion of the movie. And then I think they are apparently going to bring Michael Shannon's Zod back and Faora back, which we've discussed, but like I'm hearing further substantiations of that fact. So I'm like, I can't believe it. So they're bringing back Zod and Faora, but they're seemingly having Supergirl be the one who deals with them. Okay. And Supergirl, according to the rumor I've heard, comes from Michael Keaton's Earth. On his Earth, there was never a Superman. On Michael Keaton's Earth, Supergirl was always the only Kryptonian. Okay, so I'm laying it all on you, Brett. All the weird things I've heard. Okay, so we have a Zod who killed baby Kal-El. We have a Supergirl from Keaton's world who doesn't know really anything of Kal. She's been the only Kryptonian. And then where things get interesting, and I kind of want to discuss because I feel like it could mean something. By the end of the film, there is kind of like a rejiggered main timeline, which I still don't exactly understand how they're going to pull that off. But there is like basically like a new continuity. This is how we know that we're going to have Ezra Miller's Flash in the same world as Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. And they're going to meld continuities, right? So apparently, one of the interpretations for how they're going to handle this is, in this new continuity, there is a chance that there is a Kal, that there is a Clark, but he just hasn't revealed himself yet. That up to this point, in this new version of the timeline, Supergirl got here first. She's the first superpowered Kryptonian that the world gets to know, but it's essentially sort of implied that somewhere out there, Clark is still to come. He's still to rise. He just hasn't revealed himself to the world yet. And maybe that's the thing that gets me intrigued. I'm like, if they're going to do that, I interpret it like they're preparing a reboot. They're trying to set the stage for a fresh Clark with none of the old baggage to be there. And they're going to put that baggage on Supergirl. She's now the one who dealt with the events of Man of Steel and dealt with it perhaps in a different way, but she's going to be the one who kind of carries on that Man of Steel sort of, stuff that we saw happen between Zod and the attack on Metropolis. But Clark is going to basically have a fresh slate, that when they introduce him, it's going to be after all that, a younger Clark, I suppose. So there you have it. Let's unpack some of that, Brett. So where do we start? You want to talk about dead baby Superman?
Baby Superman.
So how would you, that's the thing that drives me insane. I don't know how audiences would take that, but let me ask you, do you think that there's a chance that in the Flash they're going to make it clear that Zod murdered baby Kal-El?
I mean, that is really dark. I mean, like when we say like dark, gritty, and all that,
Yeah,
we throw all that superfluous crap
yeah,
around all the time. That is like the pinnacle.
that's
I
next
don't.
level.
I think I don't think anyone wants to see that. I think there's a more creative way to somehow finagle whatever they want to do, and I don't know. I think that's just gonna like, not that you shouldn't do things because it'll make people angry, but
Yeah,
I think that's just gonna anger a lot of people. I don't get taking such a hard, left turn to
yeah,
make this whole situation work.
yeah.
So that's my piece on Dead Baby Superman. I
Okay.
that seems like an unnecessary element. Let's
Yeah,
find a more creative way to do that. You're dealing with a multiverse. You can pull so many
yeah,
different magical whatever's out of your ass to make
yeah,
this
yeah.
happen. We don't need to kill a baby.
Well, here's
So,
my, trying to make sense of it, right? Trying to see, like, is there a way that this makes sense? Now, I don't think we're ever going to see Zod on Krypton just, snapping some baby's neck, although that would be special.
right,
I think it's going to be more so perhaps alluded to that, how two times now in film history we've watched Zod try to thwart Jor-El. We've watched people on Krypton try to thwart Jor-El from sending the rocket ship because they
right,
don't want him, right? They don't want him to send Kal-El off, off planet. And specifically in Man of Steel, he's like attacking Jor-El, attacking the fortress there, trying to stop that ship from going out. And he even sends a ship and they're shooting rockets at it, right? So I think it might be alluded to that, like, in this world, Zod succeeded in stopping Jor-El from doing that, but whoever sent, Supergirl managed to get her out in time. So, and specifically the way I could sort of see myself accepting that is if that is only on her Earth, on her version of Earth with Michael Keaton, that happened. But once she crosses over into this new timeline, there's no longer that, like, dead Cal. This is a new continuity. And
right.
therefore we can kind of separate what happened on her Earth. Because, I guess these last two seasons of Superman and Lois getting used to multiverse stuff and like, oh, there's an alternate Lois Lane and there's an alternate Superman, and there are Earths where certain things are just different, right? So if they're going to somehow establish that on this specific Supergirl's Earth with Michael Keaton, Cal didn't survive the Zod's attack on Earth. I mean, Zod's attack back on Krypton. Then as long as when she comes into the main continuity and whatever weird magic stuff they're doing to create this new timeline, as long as that one doesn't have a dead Kal-El, as long as that one, yes, she's the first superpowered Kryptonian we've seen, but there isn't a dead Clark to deal with, and he still is out there somewhere. I could kind of get behind that. You know what I
I
mean?
Isn't it just easier though to make it that in Supergirl's continuity and the Keaton continuity that there just wasn't a Kal-El at all instead of even I never.
Yeah.
But let me be clear, I was not thinking that they were going to show Zod killing a baby. I was thinking along the same lines, like they were just going to like prevent the pod from being sent off. But
Yeah.
wouldn't it just be easier to just like not like just in this Krypton there was no Kal-El,
Yeah.
or maybe Jor-El had a daughter instead and it wasn't a
Yeah.
boy. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That feels like just do that then, because at least like whatever, it's a different continuity. That's okay. It could be some like weird, like totally like very different scenario.
Mhm.
So I don't know. To me, it's still. I think it's just gonna piss people off, and then that doesn't stop you from having like in the new weird converged continuity from having like a Clark out there that's still kind of working in secret, much like how we
Yeah.
saw Henry in the like first half of Man of Steel, where
Yeah.
he was just kind of out
Yeah.
there finding himself and doing things. So like you could still make all that happen, and yeah, then it makes way for what seems likely that they are going to do some kind of a reboot, or a
Yeah.
reintroduction of the character with a new actor.
And the good news is, though, because of the delay and the fact that The Flash is now coming out on my birthday, I'm going to always call it my birthday because it is June 23rd, 2023. Now that The Flash is coming back on June 23rd, we have what? 16 months, 15 months until then. And the fact that they're doing test screenings now means they have a lot of time to make tweaks. So let's say that they did include dead baby Kal-El, and they are going down this weird path. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of feedback from the audience going, don't do that. That's terrible. Yeah. Like, please, and they have a lot of time to either reshoot things or cut certain things or streamline certain things, So I feel like, one nice, just one nice benefit this film has that stuff like Justice League didn't get in 2017 is there's a lot of time to figure this out before it drops into theaters, So hopefully, they are able to work out those kinks, or there's also the possibility that some of this stuff is completely off. Because I've also spoken to someone who has gotten some tidbits from the test screenings, and the only real Superman stuff that they had to report is that Grace Randolph was right in that we do see Henry, but it's from archival footage on a TV, but we don't actually get to spend any time with the guy in the story. And that was the only real Superman thing that he had to kind of, pass along my way. So, so there's a chance that a lot of this stuff just came from some fakakta place and none of it happens. But these are the rumors. This is what we have to work with in light of any official statements about an upcoming Superman movie. So just to sort of recap, there's a possibility of a dead baby Kal-El. It would take place in an alternate Earth. That's the one where Supergirl comes from, and she's there with Michael Keaton. But then once they come over here, it's sort of alluded to that, yes, she's the first Kryptonian on this new Earth, but there is a Superman out there who could reveal himself later on, which in my mind could be an interesting setup for a reboot to kind of rise up in that place. So there's a lot to chew on there. It might, most of it might be real, most of it might be crap, but we had to talk about it.